720p or 1080i. Hey, did you guys see my slab back here? Look at me.
What is this? What is this thing?
Look at me, I'm Matt Cremona.
Wee!
Look at me. So yeah, that's my big old slab. Yeah, it is a little heavy, but it's kind of small. That's what she said.
It's kind of small.
It's heavy, but it's kind of small. So yeah, that's the big slab I got, and that thing was expensive. And I wish I had someone next door that I could borrow a cup of slab from, because
I don't want to tell you how much that would be here.
I don't want to know. Let's not go there. I don't want to get depressed. Okay, we are live now, by the way. So, I'm going to go to the chat room just for the heck of it. YouTube.com/woodtalk/live, just in case anybody shows up. Hopefully, nothing will freeze when I do this. Oh, it says it's on. Not online yet, so it's probably delayed.
Yeah, I was like, where is it? I didn't get my little alert that says Wood Talk is live.
Broadcast's going, so we should be okay. All right, let's just get started anyways. There's always a delay on YouTube, so it's all good.
Okay.
All right. Oh, I got to whisper in Shannon's ear. Siblings.
I have to adjust myself now.
Okay.
Welcome to Wood Talk, for woodworkers by woodworkers. Now here are three guys who like to use a lot of words, yet say nothing at all. Mark, Matt, and Shannon.
All right, it's Wood Talk number 355 for February 6th, 2017. On today's show, we're talking about long-term tool storage, selling at craft shows, and quarter-sawn lumber. And if you want to help out the show, you can. Just go to patreon.com/woodtalk, and there's a bunch of different ways you could help out, different levels that you could sign up for and get some cool stuff in return. And we'd like to thank Tony Weichel, Daniel McGarity, and Tim for helping us out. And if you do that, we'll actually mention your name on the show, just like we did for those folks there. So again, that's at patreon.com/woodtalk, and we really, really do appreciate your support. And let's see, that's just about it for the business stuff. I think we can get right into what's on the bench this week. Actually got a lot to cover on the show, quite a few voicemails and stuff, so let's get right into it. For me, I bought a slab this week. I got my Cremona on, and I went over there.
Oh, man.
I walked into this place, and I was like, hey, do you know who I'm friends with? I'm friends with Cremona. So I kind of know what I'm doing here. And
they jacked up the price.
Yeah, they said, oh, well, in that case,
it'll like that dude.
It'll be 30% more.
Putting us out of business with his homemade bandsaw mill.
Yeah, seriously. So
everyone's making their own slabs now.
we have his picture on the dartboard in the back room.
Yeah, single-handedly destroying their business. So I went to this place called CS Woods in Denver, and everybody, like, as soon as I moved here, everybody's like, oh, you got to check this place out. It's Collector's Specialty Woods, and it's just fantastic. And I took a couple videos, and I've got video specifically for the episode I'm going to be doing for the table that I'm building, and this place is just mind-blowing. It's huge. It's just this giant warehouse with the biggest slabs up against the wall, and it's, like 30-foot tall ceilings, and some of these slabs are just about getting to the top. I mean, monstrous size conference table slabs. And then on the floor, it's just flitches and stacks of anything and everything. There were just some amazing burl flitches they had set up, just stuff that it's on a different level that I would never be able to even afford it. And if I could, I'd be afraid to touch it, because it's just something so pure about these slabs. And I'm sure this is, for Matt, I'm sure this is where a lot of your love for this comes from. There's a purity in seeing this board live edge from end to end. It makes it feel like it's closer to the tree, whereas I go, to a regular lumber dealer and I just see a stack of milled lumber. It's just a very small internal portion of a tree, but it's so much more disconnected from the original tree. But these slabs are, I'm stating the obvious here, but there is something more to it that make these slabs really, really special. And this place was just amazing. So I did wind up finding a small slab that I think is good for like a deep, not really long, but like deep and sort of very basic coffee table. Kind of like kind of occupies the same space like a circular coffee table might take up, but it is kind of a square shape. So it's a little deeper than you might expect. Picked up some metal legs for it. and that's one of the things I was going to ask you guys about. I think is interesting when you're considering slabs. I think one of the most important things to do is to stay out of the way. And I think with a slab top, something that actually makes a statement. I've seen people try to do too much with the base and almost make the base of this thing compete with the top. And I don't know that that works. I feel like the more you try with a base, you just get in the way. And I think you kind of need to let the slab be the showpiece and just, sort of stick to the basics in terms of how you support this thing. I mean, have you guys seen some of that where people kind of overdo it with a slab?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because you try to be creative with it, but there's really only so much you can do before you're competing with the beauty of that slab top.
Yeah, there's a recent Fine Woodworking magazine, I think it was, that did a Limbert table on the cover, and it's just a gorgeous design with kind of a grid, the shelf that goes underneath the coffee table, stretcher or shelf or whatever, and had kind of a grid pattern to it, had tusk tenons on the side and kind of typical Limbert cutout, so like negative space things. Really very cool design, and then a slab on top of it. Now, overall, the whole thing was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And the slab was just breathtaking. And it had the typical, there was a check, so there was some butterfly splines on there, but it was almost too much. There was too much going on. And, it was one of those things where as a woodworker, of course, I got into it. I'm like, man, this is gorgeous. Look at this detail and this detail and this detail.
Sure.
And I showed it to my wife and she said, oh, what a really cool top. And I said, but what do you think of that grid pattern on the bottom? I'm thinking of doing that. She's like, well, I didn't see that. Didn't see that at all.
Didn't even notice.
And it's like your eye can only take in so much. And I think as woodworkers, we probably take in, I know we take in more than the average, than the layperson, I think. So all that extra effort is just lost on the average viewer.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So I was lucky they actually had some square legs that were from a local fabricator sitting there that I thought would actually fit this really well. And if you're watching the live stream, pardon me for a second. Just out of my reach. So here's the leg.
Cool.
It's just a big square.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
That's a rectangle, not a square.
Well, yeah, shut up, dude. It's
most people would refer to that as a rectangle.
It's squarish, okay?
Oh, the tube is square.
There are
It's
four
a rectangle with a flange.
There are 4 right angles. Shut up. And then look, there's this rectangular thing on it here, because obviously it's a rectangle, and just a nice wide plate to be able to secure it to the underside of the slab. So I think that's
what I find funny is you had started out with the intention of you wanted to highlight the taps, right? That you're making.
Yep.
So you had started out with a slab that you had for like a decade in your shop, and some hairpin legs for that, and then you realized the proportions are off. So then you went out and bought a new slab. Still haven't used the slab you've had for a decade, and still haven't used the hairpin legs you bought.
Yeah. So these hairpin legs are sitting here, and I'm like,
a woodworking hobbyist alive.
I know. I looked at it, and I was just like,
not only the original slab, but a set of hairpin legs floating around the shop.
Yeah, well, that slab is just too narrow, and that's why even I texted these two goons because I'm like, hey, is this just me or is this going to look stupid? Because it's it's just not wide or deep enough to have 4 legs on it. It looks like it would just kind of fall over. And I had these hairpin legs because that's what you kind of just go for, and you're looking for something as a minimalistic piece of hardware. But I really do not like hairpin legs. I feel like they're
so with you. So glad you said that.
Yeah, I just don't like them. They're too. It's kind of like the go-to solution if you're at an entry level point in. I've got this live edge slab. What do I do with it? I know I'll put hairpin legs on it, and I feel like it's just it's the convenient top, like let's call it like the lowest hanging fruit solution. So I was super excited when I saw sitting in their showroom they had this fabricated rectangular legs that I thought actually fit this piece, because even though it's a live edge slab, because of its depth and its dimension, it's probably, I don't know, maybe 2.5 by 3.5 in dimension. It's kind of got this stubby look to it, and I feel like a square leg would actually fit the piece pretty well, and much, much better than hairpin legs. So there you go. That's been my adventure. And yes, I am working on the thread taps. That's the idea, I'll still be able to use the thread taps with this. But today I actually filmed some of the promotional stuff for it, because we hopefully by Friday, if we're lucky, if everything goes right, we're actually going to be launching the pre-sale for the thread taps. So we've got to get some, photos, videos, and text and all that stuff up on the website and have that ready to roll. So that's super exciting. As you can tell by the sound of my voice, I'm super excited.
You look excited.
Thank you. I'm just busy. I am excited. It's a cool opportunity. There's a lot to do to get everything ready. So a little bit overwhelming, and it's Monday.
Well, I have many more questions about that, but I'll wait until they come out.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe we'll, especially if we do a pre-sale at the end of the week, maybe next week on Monday or something, we can kind of talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, cool. And Matt, I've been watching your Facebook feed and my Instagram feed, and it's like, as I'm excited about my slab that I spent tons of money on, I'm watching you just like, I don't know, you're like a guy at the deli counter lopping off things from a hunk of cheese. And it's just these beautiful crotch boards coming off of this thing. I'm like, what a jerk.
I was cutting firewood most of the week.
Oh,
that tuning fork thing you produced was just cool. I have lots of ideas for how I'd want to use that.
Yeah.
Well, that's just how I picked that up. It was cut like that by whoever cut it down and cut it for firewood. They cut the limbs above the crotch, or they cut it below the crotch and then left the limbs above the crotch. So it's like, I don't know, backwards than you would normally see, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
So my thought there was, I don't know if I'd ever do it, if I have time to do it, but someone could make like a waterfall style table with that, where they have two legs that fold down, and then you have an end thing like Mark has with the steel or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that ends up being like, a crotch top with a bit of a split in it, and then it folds down to the legs because you have all that stock there. But I mean, I have to tell you what though, the interesting thing, like I have this like interesting, like, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's like a back and forth thing like that, like of what I'm used to with bandsaws, like in the shop, compared to a giant one outside.
Yeah.
Because like the guides on my saw, I just fixed them today, but they were not working. So the blade was literally cutting without any guidance all week, and I didn't have any problems with it drifting or going anywhere except straight, very consistently. And it's like, do I even need guides? Because they just cut just fine. It's just so weird, and the fact that like I made that thing, and it's not actually like technically tuned correctly, and it's cutting like I don't even want to make it. It's like, should I make it better? Should I fix it and make it the way it's supposed to be? And maybe that'll just make it worse. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. You run that risk. So what do you think it is? You think it's the sheer scale of it, the size of the blade? Like, what is contributing to this behaving so differently than what we normally might see on a small scale in a shop?
I would guess the tension on that blade.
Right. I would think the blade itself, just, I mean, and indirectly, because you've got such a big blade, you got to tension it more. But I mean, just speaking from my, 1/15th horsepower perspective, my frame saw as compared to my band saw was it tracked such a straighter line and it cut so fast. A lot of that is tooth geometry, but just a 4-inch wide blade, has so much more beam strength to it, and it just kind of sliced right through it. I imagine it's the same thing in your case, but like times 300.
Yeah. How about because these things are flat, right? So is there any influence of the piece on the top as gravity pulls it down could be doing something to stabilize the blade? Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, because there is
top down, right?
Yeah, there is some set to the teeth, so the kerf is wider than the thickness of the band.
Okay.
So it's not like it's dragging,
right?
Either. But I mean, that's a possibility. I'm just thinking it's like when you're like, I'm gonna set up my bandsaw to resaw, and you're like out there for like 5 hours getting the blade guides all set perfectly and getting everything all whatever, the fence set and blah blah blah. Like I don't even know if my blade is parallel to the bed at this point, but it's still cutting straight.
Yeah.
So
the end result is good, so who cares?
Yeah, but it's like when you're in the shop resawing, you're like, oh, I gotta spend all this time setting up my saw, making sure it's all perfect, and it's some kind of like hocus pocus thing that people have to do to get their saws tuned up for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I slap the blade on there and going to town.
Do you think it's a relative thing though? Because obviously when you're in the shop resawing, you have less to play with. Like waste matters a heck of a lot more. You're trying to hit a specific line, and here you're just making lumber at this point. So I mean, yeah, it's cutting straight, but
it's coming out of consistent thickness though, so the blade isn't wandering through the cut
if it's not barreling, if you're not getting major tapers, and the thing is, you're dealing with extremely long lengths, so the scale on all fronts, the scale is just bigger. You would think if it's going off, you would still see it.
Yeah, the deviation would be compounded. True.
Yeah, the widest thing I cut so far, I've got 30 inches of cut width, which I'm already cutting wider than most people. They're like commercially available bandsaws will cut their mills
Right.
with no guidance at all.
That's crazy. That's cool, man.
It's just it's Cremona fairy dust. That's all it is.
I don't know what it is.
That's
It's
what
just
it is.
magic sawmill stuff.
Yeah.
You just need to grab some random guy off the street, have him sign a waiver, and then say, "Here, cut this log." We'll see if his goes this straight too, and then it could just be it's all operator talent. That's all.
Yeah, and don't dwell on it too much. You could jinx yourself here. I mean,
I'm sure there's a lot more to it too. Like the carriage on my mill is so heavy that there's no vibration in the cut either.
Sure.
So that could be it too. But it's
super
just been fun
stable.
to I've cut I don't know, probably 300 or 400 board feet of lumber already just in those couple of days. It's singing. It's just going. It's just so weird. I can't even describe the feeling. This wasn't here 6 months ago, and when it got here, it was just some square tube and some rectangular tube, and I welded a bunch of stuff together. And now I'm cutting logs up. That's cool.
It's crazy, man. Well, I'm watching those videos of you with the chainsaw mill, and I'm just like, man, that looks like a lot of damn work. Just
the cut speed too has been it's what I kind of expected it to be. My I don't know, rule or standard of success for this project was I'm happy as long as it cuts faster than the chainsaw mill.
Yeah.
Don't care otherwise as long as it's faster. So it's about a third to a quarter of the time or the cut time of the chainsaw mill, right around there. So the 30-inch wide cut that was 6 feet long is a 90-second cut, which if you're doing that on a chainsaw mill, it's not going to be 90 seconds. And you're going to be, besides the fact that it's an arduous 90 seconds or whatever, however long it's going to be, it would be a lot longer and a lot more physically demanding of a cut. So I'm happy. I don't know, just so happy.
That's cool, man. I hope it continues to go that way. That's great.
We'll
So the
see
real
when
question
I get the really big stuff up there.
How many pounds is Matt going to start to gain now that he doesn't have that, arduous Alaskan
not
mill
burning
work that
all
he
those
did?
calories?
Yeah.
Well, the difference here is now I actually have to move the logs around as opposed to the chainsaw mill. You just plop the mill on top of the log.
That's true.
Yeah,
So
until you add all your hydraulics and stuff and you're operating it from your easy chair.
Hey, don't worry. We'll talk about that later.
Deal with that later.
I'll do it on a treadmill. Those little treadmill desk things.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, those are awesome. I saw one of those before. I was like, I don't think I'd want to do that, but that's neat. It's a cool idea. Not sure I'd want to do it. Shannon, what do you got going on?
I've been smoothing out the blanket chest, getting it kind of finish ready. I still have some drawers to build for it, but I admit, in line with, I think it was last week when I was talking about putting stuff off because you're ooh, that's going to be difficult. Is this yet another example of, ooh, curly cherry, that's going to be really difficult? No, not so much. It's amazing. It's amazing how sharp fixes everything.
Sure.
There's no high angle frog. There's no special bevel up high angle blade. It's just a standard bevel down blade sharpened at 25 degrees. It's just sharp and a nice tight mouth on the smoothing plane. And it's just gorgeous. The real kind of depth and that chatoyancy you see in figured wood, it starts to come out when it's really smooth and just ready for the finish. Of course, it feels fantastic, but yeah, it was very, very nice to kind of get to that stage and level out my dovetails and really get to see kind of how the dovetails came together and get all the glue out of there. Except that, and if you look at my Instagram feed, you see blood in my Instagram feed because
yes.
as I was smoothing and leveling out those dovetails, I was kind of I'll run my hand over it and see, okay, is it flush? How does that feel? And then I kind of ran my hand back towards me across the section that I hadn't flushed out yet. And there was a nice raised razor sharp piece of hardened glue there. And I just sliced open.
That sucks.
Deeply too. Do I need stitches for this? I don't really know. But yeah, it was you idiot. There are razor sharp tools everywhere and glue. I cut myself open on glue. It's here, it's unbelievable.
Maybe glue would make a good plane blade.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe.
You just cast them.
Going back
you
to that episode we had a long time ago about, I think it was Matt that, he was on blood thinners or something. He was worried about things that he could cut himself on.
Yeah, right.
Add glue to the list. Glue is dangerous.
Yeah, glue can be nasty, especially if you use the worst stuff is the formaldehyde glues. like that dries so hard and brittle that, I mean, there have been times where I'm like, man, that's dangerous right there. We've got to knock that down before that becomes a problem.
I mean, this was hide glue, so this is
Yeah.
probably the tamest of them.
Right.
You know, it's drying super hard. I mean, PVA I think is much worse than hide glue, but yeah, it got me bad
Yikes.
too.
It made for a good picture though. I did enjoy seeing the blood.
Yeah, well, I waited for it to dribble far enough down my finger for effect.
Yeah, well, you're sitting
Of
there.
course.
Hold on. Let me squeeze it. Hold on.
Let's pump it out.
Got to
Give
get
it
the
more
perfect
blood flow out
picture.
here.
Yeah, I ran a couple laps around the bench just to get the blood pumping.
Yeah, it's like the woodworkers' version of like doing some push-ups real quick before you go to the pool. Make sure you're all pumped up and
Nice.
feeling good.
Nice. So anyway, I just have to, my editorial comment here is as much as I see all of these high angle frogs being sold and all this stuff that you have to do to prevent tear out. Now, granted, I'm working with cherry. Cherry's a nice, easy to work with domestic, but this is really curly cherry. And you just don't need any of that stuff. Just get your blade nice and sharp. Tighten up the mouth, and you'll be surprised how little tear out you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Still scares me.
Tear out?
The prospect of tear out on a very important board. It still
Well,
scares me.
You work with Bubinga a lot. That's a different story.
Not anymore, sucker.
It's true. Not anymore.
That's it. All done. All right, so let's get into what's new. And we've got a couple things to share. Our buddy, you guys remember him. His name's Matt. The original Matt V, is still making content. And it's interesting because he really dropped off for a while when he did his job transition and left the show. You guys probably remember all that. And he hasn't really been active much, but it seems like lately he's kind of dipping his toes back in, and he got his workbench project done, and now he just put up a utensil organizer, like a kitchen utensil organizer. That's just a fun little project, and it's just cool. It just reminds me, it takes me back a few years that he's making content still. So it's pretty cool. So we'll put the embed in the show notes and a link if you want to check it out.
Very cool. I'm glad to see that. I enjoyed his workbench build.
Yeah, it was good.
I just came across this in my inbox today. It's on Kickstarter. If I remember correctly, they hit their goal like 8 times over, like weeks ago. But they're essentially wooden transformers. They're called Woobots, transformable wooden robots, and they're just fun. Like, it takes me back because I remember I had a bunch of wooden like construction toys, like dump trucks and bulldozers and things that we got from a craft show in Santa Barbara, California, which is probably still there. And I absolutely treasured those things, and we still have them. They're in my mom's attic somewhere. But this just takes it to the next level. Like, it's the same as like that cool 18-wheeler wooden truck that I had as a kid, but now it transforms into a robot. And I would just love to get my hands on one of these just to see like how is it done? Like how did he do the moving parts and stuff? Is it like rubber bands? I think it's a little bit more than that, but they're just cool to see. So go buy a wooden transformer.
It's wild. I'm looking at it right now. That's great.
Yeah, it's pretty slick.
Cool.
I'm digging it.
I dig it too.
Speaking of go buy stuff,
Go buy this.
Andy Klein, he's a friend of ours.
I know that guy.
I think we'll say that. He's a good friend of the show. He had that miter fold blade that he invented almost 2 years ago, and it's finally coming out as available for pre-order from Rockler. Comes with the dado stack as well, so you got like the special blade with the dado stack, so you can use the dado stack separately if you need to, and it's all there, and it's perfect, and I can't wait to try it.
Nice. That's really cool. It's one of the coolest things is to see a fellow maker, woodworker person that like comes up with a cool idea, pitches it to a big company, and next thing you know, like everyone's of course, you got to sell this to so and so. This should be mass produced, and here it is, being mass produced. It's pretty badass. So
It's been fun to watch the ride, that's for sure.
yeah, congrats on that, Andy. All right, let's get into our kickback here. Only one thing. Mark Haas wrote in on the website in response to, I believe it was the weekend show where we talked about accessories that we can't live without. He says, my favorite is the Dubby crosscut sled, variable angles with a stop at 90, huge angle scale, micro adjust stop rod. It saved my fingers more than once. Mark. Good deal. That's good to know. All right, voicemail. So we've got a few of these. And I did preview these, and I'm not 100% sure that we're going to have answers for all of them because some questions are kind of complex in a voicemail format. So let's just go for it.
Hey guys, Mark, Matt, and Shannon. This is David, also known as Running Wood. long-time listener, first-time caller. You guys do a great service and great job, and I always look forward to listening to your podcast and your website productions. So here's my question. I'm retrofitting an existing drop-down inset door. So right now the door has a hinge on the bottom, and the door, if let go, falls down on itself. I was asked to retrofit some sort of catch so that the door will only open about 90 degrees and not fall on itself. I thought about putting in some sort of chain. I think that would be simpler than coming up with like a slide catch or something else. The question is, how do I place the chain so that the door doesn't catch on it when it closes, and it doesn't require a second hand to push it inside the door? Is there some trick in terms of mounting the chain and to make it work the best, or do you have any other ideas to devise some sort of catch so that the door does not fall down on itself? Thanks a lot. I listened to your answer. Bye.
Okay, when I first listened to this, I wasn't completely understanding what he was talking about. This sounds like a door that's horizontal, almost like a chest door or something, like the top of a chest that's falling down. So he's mentioning the chain. The first thing that comes to mind...
It's hinged at the bottom then, right?
That's what it sounds
falling
like.
Out and down. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure. But generally speaking, with this type of thing, you do have options with hardware. And not just the chain. There are these like sort of articulating arms where they're like connected in the middle, and you can use that. You use it for box tops or toy boxes, and they allow it to it restricts how far open it can go, and it can even, some of them will even slow the movement of the door as it gets closed.
There's a gas piston or something in there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so there's a variety of things out there in that category that you might want to look at that could be applicable and better than a simple chain. Because I don't know how you would restrain the chain to stop it from getting caught on the side or something.
Because he's right. Like gravity is just, as you take the tension off the chain, gravity's just going to have it kind of fall and get in the way. I had something similar to this in my old shop setup. I had these like vertical drawers that kind of leaned out, and I was putting offcuts and stuff in them. Mm-hmm. And I just went to Rockler and I bought one of those gas piston type. What do they call those things?
A thingamabob.
Yeah, thingamabob. And it
Gas
wasn't.
thingy.
They weren't expensive at all.
Yeah.
But then you also can get really fancy and go to places like Horton Brasses or even Brusso. I think has those lid catch type things that can be mortised into the side and look super fancy. I bought one from them for my blanket chest. That's what I've got to install next to keep the lid from a lid stay. I think is what it might be called officially.
There you go. That sounds right.
That's what I'm going to call it officially right now.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, there's lots of those options.
Cool. All right, we got another one here on saw noises, and I think someone's here, so I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to go away and let you guys take it over.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to say, love the show. I have been woodworking for about 14 years, but my table saw situation has always been, kind of a crappy contractor saw with a dull blade and everything. But I recently got a new hybrid saw. I'm not going to tell you the brand or where I got it because it just makes fun of me. But I'm using a new hybrid saw with a nice sharp Freud Diablo blade on it. And I have a question about its operation. It makes kind of a weird noise. It's not a mechanical noise. It's not a noise from the saw. It is kind of a mixture between a kind of a farting noise and vibration as the wood is steady the blade. And I kind of ignored it for a little while, but then I was watching a video on YouTube. I don't remember whose video it was, but they had the noise from the wood beam fed to the saw, and it had that noise. So I just wanted to ask if y'all encounter that noise from time to time. It's not consistent with my machine. I haven't figured out what wood or what kind of cut or what size of wood or anything. I haven't figured out a pattern. It just seems to have it randomly. So if y'all have any, thoughts or concerns with that, let me know. I use feather boards and push sticks and push blocks and all that good stuff. So I don't think it's the wood vibrating in the blade. I'm kind of wondering if it's maybe the blade vibrating because the Freud blades have those little lines cut in them to let the blade flex a little bit so it doesn't bind. So I'm kind of wondering if it has something to do with that. Thanks for the show. I hope I can get on Patreon soon. And yeah, cool.
Jeez, that took a long time. Like I actually, my neighbor was here and he's picking up some old pallets from deliveries and taking them to a dumpster for me. So I had to go help him. But I'm like, is this voicemail still playing? Like I thought it took me longer than that. Okay.
Does your table saw ever fart while you're cutting wood?
Only when Shannon's around.
Very nice.
And I don't think it's the table saw. So yeah, interesting noises. Noises are weird. I mean, my tools sometimes will develop a noise and I don't know 100% what it is. If it's like a bearing that's going weird or doing something funny. From his description, you guys have any suggestions for him?
I've had, let's see, when I had I think it was my glue line rip blade sharpened. When I got it back, it must have been like, I must not have been used to it being that sharp anymore. It became, I think it's pretty close to that description. It's definitely not like a straight up fart sound, but it did make more noise. I think it was just more aggressive when it came back from the sharpener than it used to be. So maybe that had something to do with it because it's brand new, but that's all I got. Maybe when they sharpened it, they changed the geometry a little bit. I have no idea.
Well, I know that you can get that, I hardly would call it a farting noise, but that rattle sound you get on a handsaw from excess vibration because it's not properly aligned. Usually you're cutting off plumb or off square or something, and you get extra vibration in the toe. So, and it only happens because he said he hears that noise like as the wood as it passes through, like near the end of the cut. So it's like half the blade is in the cut, half the blade's not. And he brought up those expansion kerfs in the Freud blade. I wonder if you're just getting vibration as like half the blade is in and half the blade is out. But
how's the cut quality? If it's vibrating, you would probably see that on the surface.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, right? And or excess burning or something like that would be, well, that could be misalignment too. But that's one thing. I mean, look at your cut quality and how accurate is your cut and what does it actually look like? Because if there's, you'll see the vibration, you'll see the undulations in the surface. If it's more a lot of burning, then it could be kind of some run out or something on his arbor or somewhere in the whole blade arbor mechanism. I think he's right. It has nothing to do with the wood.
Yeah. I don't know. If anybody has suggestions, this is one of the good things about having the audience. If this sounds familiar to you, or have a clue what that could be, let us know. Put it in the comments section for this post. Next question here we have, I don't know who it is, veneering drawer fronts.
Hello, Mark, Matt, Shannon. I wanted to call with a tiny bit of kickback. Also, I have a question. Kickback is for Shannon. On several occasions, you have said, hey, Siri, and it throws my phone way off because now it's trying to listen to what you're saying. And I hope the thrown in there
Nice job, Shannon.
doesn't make everybody else's phone do the same thing. My question, I'm building a small bathroom cabinet. Something that might be
Very long
size of
pause.
a plant stand with a little drawer and a door. And I want to veneer the door, which I'm going to build a frame and panel with a plywood panel and veneer that. And I also want to veneer the drawer front. And I'm curious if you would veneer a solid wood drawer front, or if you would use a plywood drawer front or some other sheet good and edge trim that or edge band that as well before doing the veneer, so that when you open the drawer you don't see the sides or the top of the plywood or MDF or whatever it would be. Thanks.
Okay. I think it really depends on your ultimate goal. I see making one with solid wood as your core and making it with plywood as your core. They have almost, I would see them as having very different goals. So like a reason why you might want to use solid wood as your core with a veneer is maybe, I don't know, maybe you got some really nicely figured veneer and obviously you don't have that in full lumber format, so you're going to veneer it, but maybe you're doing a dovetail drawer and you want the dovetails to actually look nice, so you're going to use a solid wood core with the veneer and you could pull that off. But most cases, for most cabinets, if he's already using some veneered plywood in the project, my gut would say unless there's a joinery reason why you shouldn't be using plywood, I would just use ply, veneer that, and then edge band it. Based on what he said, do you guys have any other use cases where you might go for solid wood specifically in this?
Easier, not to edge band it. If it's the same species, I guess. If it's a different species that you're using for a substrate,
well, that would be
I
weird.
guess you have to do something anyway. But if it's what a walnut substrate and a walnut veneer, you could probably mask that veneer seam along the edges. You don't have to worry about edge banding.
Yeah.
Or the end grain. There's something weird there, but.
Well, I'd like to know more about his veneer and the reason why he's even considering this, because you would have to do the same species. That'd be the only reason to do it, and the raw board would have to have something that you don't like about it that you would want to use the veneer instead of just using a piece of solid stock, right? So there's got to be something special about this veneer that he wants to use it.
Well, I can test that you have to use the same species. I mean, it doesn't have to be the same species. I've got African mahogany veneers on the drawer fronts of my tool cabinet with cherry substrate. Looks just fine. Now, granted, I used 1/4 inch thick veneer.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different look than that, but it worked out. Looks great.
I'm guessing, in most cases, though, you're probably going to want them to look like it's actually one piece of material.
Well, the thing that I would worry about anytime I've got to do edge banding, because Matt already said this, it's just easier to have to skip the edge banding. Mm-hmm. But then you've got the edge of the edge banding. So it's like, okay, well, you do the edge band first and then veneer the face over top so that the face covers the edge of the edge band. But then you've got the edge of the face veneer, which I suppose if your veneer is really, really thin, it's not really that big of a deal. But if you're using shop sawn like 1/8 inch or even 1/16 inch, there's still going to be an edge showing.
You got
whether
miter
it's
all
on the
those
face
now.
or on the edge.
You got miter all.
Miter all your veneer seams.
This whole thing's falling apart here. I mean, if you're making it from your own stock, then you already have the stock to make the drawer front solid.
Right.
What do you need to cut it into veneer for?
You're just being stingy and you're trying to stretch that stock out as long as you can.
Maybe it's Babinga.
Legit, if it were really figured, really beautiful, curly walnut or whatever.
Sure.
Bird's eye walnut, which if you've never seen bird's eye walnut, wow.
Hey, yo.
Cool. But yeah, if you get a piece of bird's eye walnut, saw that end of veneer, stretch that thing out. But yeah, and Mark, I think you nailed it as far as joinery, I think would be the determiner more than anything.
Right. Cool. All right.
Dovetails of plywood. I wouldn't recommend it.
It can be done. Should it be done?
It can be done.
The question.
It's not fun at all.
Okay, so we have another question from Mark, who has an issue with a built-in. What in the heck? Hold on.
Oh,
that wasn't. How did I do that? Oh, you know what? I changed the file name of the wrong file. Here we go.
So you have a censor button? You can bleep us now?
No, that is.
We can just cut loose.
That actually, I keep it on my desktop. It is a censor beep that I use just in case we need it. So it's always there. And I changed the name of that file to Mark's built-in, and I just picked the wrong file. So here's the one that I should have changed the name to.
Hey, Mark, Matt, and Shannon, it's Mark from Utah. I'm hoping you can help me with a design question I'm pondering. I'm trying to design a built-in closet system to go into my son's closet. The closet measures almost 28 inches deep and 71 inches wide. I'm planning to put in a shoe cubby tower in the middle of the closet to support the saggy shelf that's currently above their closet rod, and then put a dresser on each side of the shoe cubby tower, one for each boy. The problem is the depth of the dressers. Most dressers are 17 or 20 inches deep. If I build to that dimension, I have 8 to 10 inches of wasted space at the back of the closet behind the dressers. I could put a hinged lid over that space so that they have a tall, somewhat hidden storage area for their toys. If I do that, though, they may not be able to reach the bottom of the space, as I'm planning to make the dressers about 33 inches tall in order to have the dresser top be coplanar with the top of the chair rail that goes around the room. I could just make the dressers and drawers that go in them extra deep, but then I'm concerned about things getting lost and forgotten at the back of the drawers, not to mention hard for the boys to open and close, and the drawers would end up being roughly square, which seems to be kind of bad design. I could make the dresser extra deep and make the drawers standard size and have them slide on a shelf instead of a web frame, so there's a hidden storage area in the dresser behind the drawers, but then I'd be concerned about things getting lost because they were put there and forgotten about. What are your thoughts on how to handle the extra space? I look forward to hearing your answer on the show. Thanks.
All right, I'll throw it to Matt first. What would you do in a situation?
Oh, I don't know. I'd probably just go extra deep.
Just
The full depth.
use the space for the dresser.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's what I would
What
do
is
too.
the limiting factor here? Why can't he just shrink the whole design down? Why does it have to be that deep?
Then there's wasted space inside the closet.
Yeah, so then it's probably just going to be set back from the front of the closet. He just wants to utilize and probably keep it flush
fold.
toward the front.
But wouldn't that be somewhat desirable to have a little bit of air between the door of the closet and the?
I don't know. You're asking
Well, I
a
guess it
question
doesn't
we
really
don't
matter.
have.
Doesn't really matter.
We don't have the info on.
Where are there going to be doors?
Who
Is
knows?
there
Yeah,
a
I guess he
chair
didn't
rail
say,
going
did
around?
he?
Maybe he's taking the doors off, so it's just going to be the pocket where the closet was.
Let's just
Right.
assume that's his restriction, that it needs to be. He wants to use the entire depth.
Okay.
Trying to be efficient, Shannon.
Yeah,
Only
come
got
on.
so much space.
Don't be silly.
Yeah, except that at the cost of being efficient, you now have this dead space at the back. That's not efficient. I do like the idea of kind of the storage space behind, but I wonder, he's right. Like you'll never be able to get to the bottom, and then you've got like
You got to pull the
some
whole
little kid
floor
like
out.
reaching up and falling headfirst into his hidden storage cabinet, and
Yeah.
the lid shutting close on him behind him, and I wonder, is there a way like to get access to the sides? Like, could you make the door on the side?
And the problem is, I think to do that, you'd have to have gaps on the side big enough to have the door swing open. And if he's going full width, it's not gonna be able to make that work. I would say give it to the dresser. I mean, kids accumulate a lot of clothes. If you have these big dressers, who cares about dimension when you're talking about a built-in?
Right, 'cause you can't really see.
Yeah,
right?
depth kind of becomes irrelevant at that point. So I would say use the space. And furthermore, get yourself some overextension slides. All right, so you could pull those entire things out, make sure they're, weight rated properly for this. And then these drawers are going to be so big, maybe throw in some dividers so you don't just have this massive, like, giant
Man.
drawer.
I'm thinking Seinfeld right now. We're going to be hosting a little hotel room.
You're going to put a team of Asian men in the drawers. Yeah, so I think if you could subdivide them a little bit, get a little bit of organization in there for you as the parents who are probably putting the clean clothes in these drawers, I think you'll enjoy that extra space as long as you get extension slides that allow you to pull the thing out completely and get to the far back end of that drawer compartment. I say more storage is better, especially for kids.
At the same time, I agree with that, but I think maybe take one of the drawers and put that little secret compartment in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking, like, when I was a little boy, that would have been cool.
That's true.
Like, Dad, and you could put like a lockbox door on it or some sort of thing with like a padlock, and that could be little Johnny's secret stash. And then when little Johnny becomes teenage Johnny, it could be his secret stash.
I was
You
just
know what I mean?
I was just gonna say you can almost tell that Shannon doesn't have kids because you kind of don't want to encourage your kids to be hiding crap from you. Like, not only give them permission to hide stuff, but enable them by building a secret compartment in their furniture. I mean, then again, it's one
what's
you
there.
know about. So,
Yeah,
but
if you built
trust me, it
if
is
you have an
only
extra key to it.
it's only, especially if they're boys, it's only a matter of years before there's pornography in there or something related to that. So, just
Well, then, you know where to go to get porn.
that's true. Yes,
In case you need it.
you can always use more.
Yeah, because you need a place to go find porn.
Then again, yeah, I mean, we are
whole
talking, it's
internet
it's
thing.
2017. I'm not sure if it works the same way as it did when I was a teenager.
I think you hide your porn now by hitting clear browser history.
Yes, exactly. It's a browser
You don't
history
need a cubby
question.
for that.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're going to put in there, but it ain't going to be good.
Hey.
Okay.
Sorry, Mark. We just took your conversation off the rails. I
And
hope your kids don't listen to the show.
We also assume the worst of your children, so we apologize for that.
Yeah, there's that.
Okay. Let's see. So if you want to leave a voicemail like those folks did, you can just give us a call on Skype. You can use our username, Wood Talk Online, or call us at 623-242-5180, or get us at woodtalkonline@gmail.com. You could send us a voice memo from your phone app. All right, let's get into our emails. And I've got the first one here from Andrew Hansen. He says, long-term tool storage, power tools. I have to leave large power tools behind for a couple of years, at least, to go live in Italy. I'm taking my hand tools and Rubo with me. What sort of prep would you recommend for the cast iron surfaces before I lock them away for possibly 2 to 7 years? So my first instinct here is to do what the manufacturers do. So whenever you get a new tool, it arrives in your shop, it's coated with schmutz and has a layer of like plastic film on top of the schmutz. And I think that's a pretty decent long-term storage solution. So the material you can use is called Cosmoline, and maybe you guys know something else or other brands or things that might be useful for this as well. But basically,
that is a brand, isn't it? Isn't
I don't know if it's
Cosmoline a branded product.
It says is the genericized trademark for a generic class of rust inhibitors. So maybe, I don't know. I don't understand that.
Sticky
That was
goo.
confusing English. But yeah, so it's kind of waxy, sticky substance, and you can coat it with a layer of plastic, and that should keep those cast iron surfaces in pretty good shape until it's time to use them again. And it, like I said, it works well for manufacturers who have to ship these things out and store them in giant warehouses. I think it would work well in a storage situation that for long term like that. So that would be my suggestion.
I'm good with that.
Quick answer on that one.
I know Bow Shield has the typical Bow Shield product. They have instructions for long-term storage that involves like a second coat and not wiping it off.
You're leaving it on, yeah, because
then
that's
it dries
pretty
kinda
nasty
waxy
too.
There, so that might be a little bit easier to apply because it's an aerosol format, but it's probably more expensive too because Bow Shield T9 is not cheap.
Yeah, and I'm looking on this one website. I don't know if this is exactly what you would use, but it looks like a gallon can. You can get it for $78. So that's probably going to go a little bit further than Bow Shield aerosol type stuff.
Well, any aerosol is going to be wasteful.
Pretty wasteful. But yeah, there you go.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
This
yeah.
next one is from Andre. It says, "Hey guys, great show. Keep it up. Straight grain lumber. Everything I've been making has been with plain sawn lumber, either through my local hardware supplier or my walnut guy." Man, walnut guy. That sounds
Walnut guy.
pretty fancy.
I wish I had a walnut guy.
My lumber supplier doesn't carry quarter sawn. If I cut my plain sawn board in half, do I have quarter sawn? Will this piece have less movement? What are my options? He also goes on to say, one more thing. I built a dining room table with from 3 large panels and with 4 breadboards. 4 breadboards.
Say what?
Huh?
How it?
I don't. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading this. While
Yeah, keep going.
I ponder in the back of my mind how it's possible. Not a good design, but it's flat and holds stuff. Since it's been in the house, the panels have shrunk and the breadboards didn't. The breadboards are about a 1/4 inch wider than the panels. I'm planning on trimming the edge with a straight edge and a circular saw. For future builds, is this avoidable? Is there some calculation I should be using when building to compensate for the panel shrinking? Would using quarter sawn lumber help a great deal? Thanks, guys. So I still don't know how 4 breadboards would work, but I'll go back to the beginning here.
Maybe he put a
If you cut
breadboard
it-
on all 4 sides.
Right. Did he do it
So-
all 4 sides?
So like on the long grain too.
It's just an edge green board.
It would just be and like a glue up. It would just be more boards. I don't know. Maybe he
Right.
meant maybe it's a typo. Maybe it was 2 breadboards.
Okay.
I don't know.
Clarify that for us, Andre, because that's very confusing.
This could be
Say,
very
did you
unique.
miter the edges? Because now it's just a mitered top.
Maybe he put breadboard ends on his breadboards.
Ooh, that's meta.
Double
I have a
breadboard.
6. That'd be 6 breadboards.
That's got to be even better.
That's belt and suspenders. You're worried that the breadboard ends are going to cup. So breadboard the breadboard
Breadboard,
ends.
yeah, little tiny breadboards at the very end.
You just keep
That's like,
going.
that's like government fine furniture construction. Fine furniture made by
Somebody's got to do that. You got to make a breadboard on your breadboard. That would be hilarious.
Right, you got those double dovetails, right? So
Yeah.
now you got to have breadboard and breadboard.
We're not making fun of you, Andre. By the way, they're just having fun with
But kind of.
woodworking.
We're not, but
You just gave us the inspiration to make jokes.
that only woodworkers would care about.
That's right. Yes.
If you cut a plain sawn board in half, do you have quarter sawn? Only if your plain sawn board came from towards the center of that cut, so you have the pith pretty close to the center of that board. The 2 outside halves of that board will be quarter sawn. But interestingly enough, if you have a flat sawn board where the grain is running perfectly parallel to that face, the edges of those boards are technically quarter sawn because those growth rings are intersecting those edges at 9 degrees. Doesn't really matter. That's a fun fact.
And now you know.
Let's
I just
see
like
here.
the math involved. If I have if it's been cut once, if I cut it again, is it now quarter sawn because it's been cut in half?
Well, the first cut is
I just
half
cut the
sawn.
half in half.
Right.
That's a quarter. It's quarter sawn.
That's how
so
it works.
technically, yes, it is quarter sawn. I like that.
It's true. Oh boy.
I'm gonna try pushing that at the lumberyard. Hey guys, you can sell this more because it's quarter sawn.
Yeah.
This question's going really well.
You're doing it justice. Keep going.
Okay, so on the table shrinking, so it could just be that this time of the year the panel is going to move, that breadboard end is not. Making the whole table out of quarter sawn boards would cause it to expand less. Mathematically, it would expand half as much, so that breadboard would only be 1/8 of an inch wider than the panels if all the math is consistently correct. Tangential and radial expansion on wood are the two things you're looking at there, and I always confuse them. One of them
Radial
expands less. Okay, there we go. So radial quarter sawn expands at half as much as tangential, roughly. So that kind of gives you an idea of that. And to compensate for the panel shrinking, just get an idea of how much it's going to move. There are a few calculators out there that you can just type in the species, the cut, and the moisture conditions of your home or where you live or whatever. I'll tell you how much it'll move, throughout those moisture swings throughout the year, from winter to summer, for instance. So you kind of plan that way. But with breadboard ends, you got to think about it because that panel is always going to move. So which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the breadboard ends to be proud or not proud?
Right.
Half the year.
Well, I also think if he's going to trim it, think about when he trims it.
Yeah.
Like if you trim it in like the spring, it generally will be flush more of the year. But if you trim it during one of the extremes, like in the middle of summer or in the middle of winter, where it's either the driest and or the wettest, the wood is only going to expand its maximum amount from there. So, rather than trimming it flush in the middle of July and August when it's just going to shrink up from there, trim it kind of in those transition seasons. You'll have it flush twice a year instead of just once a year.
I would actually recommend waiting a little bit longer if you can, because if you can get a year or two and just kind of pay attention, make it a little side project, see what this thing does, because those panels could have shrunk down to a point of equilibrium and they actually lost quite a bit of moisture. So you may have more there. So if you are making this adjustment right now, you could end up in trouble. But if you find that as it, in the most humid season, you still wind up having a little bit of an edge there on the breadboard, that is the amount that you want to trim in the most humid time of the year, because otherwise you're going to wind up with them sinking inside the panel, which looks horrible. I'd rather them be proud than be sunken in. But I'm thinking there could have been at least some general panel shrinkage based on equilibrium. It may have just dried out a little bit more, and now its fluctuation may only be 1/8 of an inch across the year. So look at it, give it a little more time, I would say, and see what it does before you do anything drastic.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Thank
you.
you.
That was a really good question. Thank you.
Good job, Andre.
Yeah,
we made fun of you.
We butchered
That's
it.
a good question.
It's okay though.
All right, this next one comes from, I'm going to say Michal. Michal?
Michael?
It's probably Michael.
It's an interesting spelling, Michael.
I'm getting all fancy and stuff. Michal. Monsieur Michel. Yeah, my name's Michael. If I'm not mistaken, one of you did the craft show circuit. If so, what were the best kinds of shows? Home and garden, wine, country fairs, etc. This is my second year full time into woodworking, and I want to hit the circuit a lot more this year. Thanks. So, I did the craft show circuit, and I hit a lot of different shows, and I can say there is no one best kind of show. They all have kind of their own character, and what you need to do is find the show that best suits what you're making, or tailor what you're making to meet that show. A good example, I used to do, I did a lot of Christmas bazaar type things, because of course people are in the spend and gift buying mode. And I did one year at the school where my wife works, and she works at a girls' school. So I went into it the first time, and there was basically a bunch of vendors showed up catered directly towards the students. Like, they're supposed to be there buying for mom and dad, but it's like stuff for middle school girls.
Right.
And I showed up with gifts for dad. Like I made a bunch of pens. I made like pocket humidors, like that fit in like a briefcase and stuff. It was
nice.
Just pure masculine gifts. And I cleaned up because I was the only one there who was actually selling stuff And in general, like to a middle school girl, dad is impossible to buy for. Like, what do you get dad? Like, you can't relate. And dads are so tired of getting ties and stuff like that. And this was like, ooh, handmade wooden pin, handmade box. And it was the perfect product for that particular market. And it just fit perfectly. But then I took the same line of stuff to a home and garden show and sold very little because it was, a totally different demographic that was there. Either a lot of DIY type people that were looking for stuff for the home, for enhancements for their house, and they weren't really looking for keepsake boxes and things like that. I never actually, the home and garden one, if you find a show that's not very good, that's probably not very good because it is catered to a lot of the DIY type set, people who want to improve their house or whatever. So you got to take a look at what's around you and figure out, what am I making and how does that speak to the particular person that would go to that show. There are craft shows at retirement homes, and big furniture, not a good idea. There's no place to put them. These people are in the sunset years, and they're looking for more of the keepsake type stuff. They're also fixed income generally, so you got to keep your prices low. So yeah, you got to look at what you're making to make the decision from there.
Cool. Good advice.
Cool.
All right. So I think that's going to wrap it up for us. And just a reminder, we do have an email extra that we record after this show for our $4 and higher patrons. And today we're going to discuss it's a particular person situation, but more generally, what do you do if you confront something that you just can't get good results? No matter how much you practice, no matter how much you do, you can't get good results. Do you bail? Do you keep working harder? Do you look for a different instructional resource? What do you do? So we're going to ponder that question. And if you want to support the show, you can. Again, I mentioned at the top of the show, we'll mention it again. Patreon.com/woodtalk is where you can go, sign up. And remember, you do that $4 level or higher, you actually get that extra content every week. And you can also get a Wood Talk t-shirt over at twwstore.com. And look us up in iTunes and leave a review if you want to do that. That always helps too. Shannon, how about you give them the contact info and we'll get out of here.
Okay. If you can figure out a way to put 4 breadboards on 3 panels, you can let us know. Is it a lottery system? However you do that. But you can leave us a voicemail on Skype. Our username is WoodTalk Online. You can call us at 623-242-5180. You can use our contact form at woodtalkshow.com/contact, or just go to this page, woodtalkshow.com, this episode, leave a comment at the bottom, and tell us about the mysterious breadboard conundrum.
Yep.
That's it. Oh yeah, we have our own sites too. Woodwhisper.com, renaissancewoodworker.com, and slabbergasted.com, mattcremona.com,
cupofslab.com.
Cup of slab.
There you go. There's another one.
Breadboards in 3/4 time.
There you go.
That's going to be my next composition.
I'd listen
There
to
you
that.
go.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will catch you next time. I think.
Goodbye. I think.
What do we do now? I forget.
Breadboard. It's not 3/4 time. That was
Okay. All right. Save.
I'm going to call that one breadboarded breadboards.
Breadboard my breadboard. Get your breadboard off my breadboard.
See, I want someone to do that and see how far they can take it. Like, at one point, can you not put a breadboard end on?
Just
anymore?
getting infinitesimal.
It's a table of breadboards.
Yeah, that would be amazing. There was another one I thought was I wrote down
Breadboard
early on.
fractals.
I wrote down early on that
It's
Matt
basically
said
just a giant ingrained cutting board, but with breadboard.
that'd be good. Matt said early on to keep your limbs above the crotch. I actually wrote that down because I knew I'd forget. So that might be something to consider. Whatever you want to do.
No, that one's much better.
Okay.
That suits our general theme.
And I find that anytime we mention balls or crotch, we tend to get more listens. So I don't know what that says about the audience, but all right. Real quick, while we're on this break here, I'm going to kill the live stream in a second. But so thank you everybody who's listening live. We appreciate it. Actually, I'm going to kill it now so we can talk about this privately. It's
Don't kill them.
very private.
They're nice people.
You're dead.